Hello class, and welcome to 2.3a. We're going to look at linear functions and their slope. You know, the linear functions are the most basic of all functions, so that's why we're going to take a look at those first. So a line that is drawn on a graph has an equation which we call a linear function. And lines have a particular characteristic of slope. That's how it's slanted. So we're going to learn how to find that slope. So the definition of slope is given to you right here. Definition of slope. It's going to be the change in the vertical, or the change in the horizontal, which is the x, or the rise over the run. And the formula for that is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So right there. And that denominator cannot equal 0 because, that breaks the law. That's a particular special case, and we'll look at this in a few minutes. So let's use that formula and find the slope of these lines. So we're going to have a line that goes through these 2 points, negative 3, 4 and negative 4, 2. So let's indicate that this one is going to be our x1, this is going to be our y1, this is going to be our x2, this one will be our y2. So if we take y2, which is negative 2, and we subtract that from y1, which is 4, we're going to put that over x2, which is negative 4, subtract x1, which is negative 3. We have negative 2 minus 4, which is negative 6, and negative 4 minus a negative 3, which is the same thing as saying plus 3, so that's going to be negative 1. Negative divided by a negative is a positive, so our slope is going to be a positive 6 as we simplify 6 over 1. Why don't you go ahead and pause the video and see if you can't work out B, and then turn it back on and see how you did. All right, let's see if you guys agree with me. I did 5 minus negative 2 over negative 1 minus 4, which gave me 7 over negative 5, or negative 7/5. Did you get that? You did. Great. High five. Let's move on. So in the slopes that we found, hopefully you noticed that one was positive and one is negative. Well, there's a shape or a direction that they go when they're positive or negative. So let's take a little bit closer look at that. Fix a cord down here a minute. Keeps getting in my way. Okay, we're all better now. All right, so we have a positive slope. There it is. So this one is positive. It's going, when you go from left to right, you're going uphill. And the negative slope here, when you go left to right, it's going to be downhill. Now we have something that's a zero slope, and that's where y2 minus y1 equals 0. Remember, that's our numerator, and that's going to be a horizontal line where it's going to be just y equals some number. Then we have this undefined slope. I said that we would come back to this in a few minutes. That's when x2 minus x1 is equal to 0. That means it's undefined because that's the denominator. We can't divide by 0. You know that, right? Okay, so we can't, this is when the rise over run, this is the run, cannot be 0. So let's take a look at what else we can do with these things. So we're going to learn some of those functions or equations for our lines. The first one we're going to learn is called the point slope form of an equation, of the equation of a line. So the point slope form, you're going to use a point, which is going to be given to you as x1, y1, and you're going to be given a slope, and you're going to use the slope. So this number and this number comes from the ordered pair, and this number is going to be your slope. So down here in the equation, it says, or in the directions for our example, it says write the point slope form of the equation of the line with a slope of 6. So they tell us that slope is 6. And it passes through the point 2, -5. So that's my x1, y1. So I'm going to use this y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And I'm just going to substitute these in. So the 6, oops, I wanted a different color. The 6 goes here, oops, right there. And the 2 goes here. And the 5 goes here. So we're going to rewrite this as y minus -5 equals 6 times x minus 2. So a lot of times, though, they might ask you to then solve the equation for y, and that is going to give you y equals mx plus b, which is the slope-intercept formula. So first thing we're going to do here is we're going to distribute that 6. So we get 6x minus 12. And y minus -5 is like adding 5, so it's y plus 5. So I'll subtract 5 from each side, and I'm going to get y equals 6x minus 17. And there's the answer to that. Well, here's one for you to try, but you have to do 2 things. The first thing, if you notice, they gave you 2 points. They didn't give you a point in the slope. Since they gave you 2 points, you can find the slope using the equation for finding a slope. So then you have a slope, and you can put it into the point slope form, and you can use either one of those points. So pause the video and give it a shot. Okay, so voila, there's the answer. Now you notice I have 2 choices there. This one here is if I used this as my point. This one is if I used this as my point. But notice that when I get it into slope-intercept form, you get the same answer. So both this one and that one are correct as long as you using the correct slope. So I've already talked about the slope-intercept equation of the line, and now I've got it here in your notes. So right here, y equals mx plus b. But we know that m is the slope, but b is also a very important part of that. The b is the y-intercept. That's where it crosses the y-axis. So we can use that form, besides it being in function form. I lost my pen. Oops, I just scribbled all over the screen. Okay, besides it being, we know the slope, which is going to be the rise over the run. The y-intercept, we can plot containing that, we point that as 0b, so whatever that number is. We can put that on the graph, and then we'll just count up and count over, and we can graph something. Well, that's being silly. That's not what I intended to draw. So let's go ahead and use that form, the slope-intercept form, to graph this line. Now, my slope is going to be 3 over 5. So that means I'm going to go up 3 and over 5. But from where? I'm going to start at this point, which is 0, 1. So I'm going to put a point right there at 0, 1. Then I'm going to go up 3 and over 5 to this point. How many points do you need for a line? You need 2. Now, if you want to go backwards and you go down 3 and backwards 5, you can do that as well. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. and oops, that point. Now I'm going to try to connect these in a straight line, but you know how well I could draw on this. But there we go. Let's pretend that's nice and straight. You can use a ruler or a straight edge and get it even prettier. And then we have our horizontal and our vertical lines, and they're a little bit different. So remember I said that this is going to be y equals some number? Well, it's going to be wherever it crosses that y-axis. And this is going to be x equals some number. It's going to be whatever number that line crosses the x-axis. And there's no other, I mean, this one only has y's, this one only has y's and no x's, this one only has x's and no y's. Now, if it's not horizontal and it's not vertical, a general form of the equation of a line is going to be like this. ax plus by plus c is equal to 0. And sometimes you might see it as ax plus by equals c. They're both general forms. A, b, and c are real numbers, so we clear our fractions and make them whole numbers instead of fractions because they're easier to work with. So we're going to use all of these different types of forms. So we've got, it says find the slope and the y-intercept of the line whose equation is 3x plus 6y minus 12 equals 0. So the easiest way to do that is to do some algebra and get that into a y equals mx plus b form. So let's pick a color. So I'm going to take 3x plus 6y minus 12 equals 0. So I'm going to add 12. So I have 3x plus 6y equals 12. I'm going to subtract the 3x. So I have 6y equals negative 3x plus 12. And then I'll divide by 6. So I'm going to have y is equal to negative 1/2 x. And then 12 divided by 6 is 2. So my slope-intercept form is this equation here. And my y-intercept then is going to be 0, 2. So I'm going to go put a point right here. That's 0, 2. And then I have my slope is equal to negative 1 over 2. So I'm going to go down 1 and over 2, or you can go up 1 and to the left. Either way. So up 1 and back 2, because we want to have a negative slope, it'll be here, or if you go down 1 and then over 2. So these are going to be the points that I want to use for my slope. Remember, you really only need 2, but I'm giving these to you because my line is going to probably be a little wonky. Anyway, something like that. And that's your line. Another way, if they didn't ask you to put it into slope-intercept form, if you're given it in general form like ax plus by plus c equals 0, we can use the intercepts. And by using the intercepts, that means I'm going to find what is y when x is 0 and what is x when y is 0. So I'm just going to fill in these blanks here. So let's use this one. This is supposed to be a y. It must have gotten cut off there. Now it looks like a y. So I'm going to, first of all, I want to add 6 to each side. I'm going to have 3x plus 2y. I'm sorry, that's not a plus. That's a minus. Let's fix that. Minus 2y is equal to 6. Now, one of the ways we call this the cover-up method. When x is 0, well, 3 times 0 is 0. So you can just take your finger and cover that up. And then you're going to solve to negative 2y equals 6. So I'll divide by negative 2. And 6 divided by negative 2 is negative 3. So you're going to have the point 0, negative 3, which is here. When you find the other intercept, you're going to make y 0. So you're going to cover off the y term because negative 2y is when you have negative 2 times 0, it's just 0. So we're just going to cover that up. And we have 3x equals 6, so I'll divide by 3. And we get x is equal to 2. So we have the point 2, 0, which is here. And like I said, 2 points make a line. So we're going to make our line. Notice that they say use a straight edge. I wish I could here on the computer, but not so much. Okay, your turn. So I want you to use these data points that are given to you, the 1030 and 2032.8, and they're drawn. You can have a graph given to you, and I would like you to, your first thing you're going to do is find the slope. Because you're going to find an equation. So find the slope, and we'll use this as x1, y1. This will be x2, y2. And then you're going to pick one of these points. I would suggest this one because 30 is easier to work with than 32.8. And use the point slope form. And then you're going to do the work and put it into the slope intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. And I'm going to give you another here. Get the slope in decimal form. Use it as a decimal rather than a fraction because you've got a decimal in your points. And your b is also going to be in decimals. So I will put my answer up in just a few seconds. So pause this, and then you can see the answer. All right, so the equation is y is equal to 0.28x plus 27.2. Oh, and then you wanted to know what it is in 2020. So that is going to be 50 years after 1970. So x is going to be, I want you to find f of 50. Remember, y is also f of x. So now just plug 50 in here and come up with an answer. Go ahead and do that. So I'm sure you got the same answer, but let's just double check. You got 41.2 years. Awesome. Great. We'll keep practicing these.